Okay, we're going to go through these quickly so you can go to work.
Yeah, I need to make some money.
Okay, we're going to start with Ouija. If that's what you want to say. Apparently there's an argument about how it's actually pronounced.
Ouija.
Well, the thing about it is I think it depends on the context. Because I've never heard Ouija by itself. I've always heard it accompanied with the word board. Kind of like how you say Caribbean, but then Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
It just depends on the context.
I agree with that.
But Ouija's what I've always heard, so that's what I'm going with. Sorry if you think otherwise. So this appears to be our last wide release horror movie of the year, I hope.
Sounds like it.
I think we were already done by this time last year because Carrie was the week before this.
Yeah.
That's the last one. And it's PG-13 scares galore. Scares in quotes.
Yeah.
So it begins and we meet these two. They're actually a whole group of friends, but we really focus on the two at first. This is a great sign. The girl from The Quiet Ones.
Yeah.
And her friend Debbie. I didn't catch a lot of the character names, but I'll try to remember them. Because that's how important they are. So, Debbie has a Ouija board in her bedroom. Because she likes to play with fire, I guess.
Apparently.
Well, no, actually it starts and we see them as kids playing with it, but that amounts to nothing. We immediately cut ahead. There's one little cheap, oh, you thought it was something, but it's not. Scare, but, whatever. That's just what these movies do all the time. So Debbie is burned at the Ouija board, and for some reason, instead of getting out of the house to, I don't know, celebrate what she thought was her getting rid of this problem, she tells her friend, actually, I don't want to go out and party, I mean, yeah, you came all the way to my house, and I'm sorry you went through all that trouble, but I'm just going to say no. Bye. For no reason at all. She wants to sit at home and have dinner by herself in her empty kitchen after she isn't quite sure she fought off the ghost. Okay. I'm not saying what happened to her is something she deserved, but that's kind of what happens when you pretty much force yourself to stay at home alone after you have supposedly beaten ghosts. So, long story short, instead of this, I don't know what's up with this ghost, but it's apparently afraid that it's going to be put on trial for murder or something. Because it makes all the deaths in the movies look like either suicides or accidents. It's like it's afraid of getting caught or something.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
I'd love to see that trial. That'd be a fun movie. Yeah, somebody should do that. Make it like a satire. Where a ghost is put on trial for the murders it's caused. But no, she ends up hanging by the ceiling by way of Christmas lights. I don't know what Christmas lights are doing around the house because it's never brought up once that it's Christmas time. But
nope.
Okay, I guess some people do that. Yeah. So yes, and then that sets it off, and so her friend gets the idea. Well, why don't we talk to her? Because, which is kind of weird because the whole setup for this is that she tells everybody that she's like, I can sense, that Debbie's around. There are times where I just feel like she's right there. But the trouble with this is after Debbie dies, we pretty much follow her around throughout the entire movie, and there's no scene that indicates that she senses Debbie.
No.
We just have to take her word for it, even though she's just been obviously living a normal life apart from the whole grieving process. That's all we've seen of her, but then suddenly she goes to her friends and says, I can sense Debbie everywhere, we must do this. Okay, fine. So they do that, and of course, spirits unleashed, etc. Now, there are a lot of problems here, naturally. I'll start with the fact that, as far as character development, it seems like they were really trying to go for it, because they really tried to really capture the whole grieving process thing. We spend a lot of time on this before it turns back into a horror movie.
Yeah. With
them going to the funeral and then saying, oh my god, I feel like she's still here. There's no way this is real. I can't go into that funeral home because this just isn't real. That's the problem, though. Is this movie, despite that, doesn't really seem to care what's in between the scares. Because all of the dialogue is really, really redundant. Like, even before, like, the big opening, it's just her trying to convince Debbie to come out. And it's this very long conversation of just, hey, why don't you come out? No, I don't want to. Oh, come on, it'll be fun. No, I don't want to. I wasn't sure how long this opening was going to go just with that conversation alone. But that's pretty much what all the dialogue is like in between the scenes where they're, you know, doing shit with the Ouija board. So it's like the writers were just kind of killing time until they got to those scenes. That's not a good idea. And now, talking about the technical aspects of it, there is a kind of atmosphere here, a little tiny bit, but it's never really brought forth. And when they do try to do certain technical tricks to kind of build suspense, one particular scene stands out as really weird, which is the pool. When the dude, the generic boyfriend dude, whose name I don't remember, is at the pool, and there's this moment where he's down here while she's up in her bedroom looking around where she eventually finds the Ouija board. And there's really rapid editing back and forth here. Like something is building. And something really drastic is about to happen. Because and he's reaching for something in the pool, and then he will reach, and then we'll cut back up to the bedroom, and then we'll cut right back to him, and he's still reaching, and then we'll cut right back up to her. It's like something is going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
But then that cutting just stops, and we stay in the bedroom. And that's the extent of that. Well, no, I think the reason they did it is because it's like to say, he's by the pool, you know, make sure you remember that he's by the pool, and that's where he is. He's really far away from her right now. Because her in the bedroom eventually turns into a scene where she closes the door and he's there. And I guess that was the whole purpose of that build-up. So, that's the kind of stuff you have to look forward to. This is another one of those movies where, despite the fact that nobody in this movie cares that there are ghosts afoot. Because, like I said, the first thing Debbie did when she burned the Ouija board was say, I want to stay home in the dark. After the spirits are summoned, and even like the non-believers are saying, you know, like, oh my god, that was so weird. The characters just spend their time, like, hanging out in the dark. But we see generic boyfriend guy, and he's going home, so he decides to take the dark alleyway under the bridge home.
That was dumb.
Just for the sake of it. And then, of course, we have the scene where the one girl's at work, and then they're like, hey, why don't you take out the garbage? Because it's really, really late at night, and you'll be alone.
I can vouch for you, they do not do that at most jobs. They usually have a guy go out with a girl after hours, just in case something happens like that. They just like, nah, you go outside, take the trash with you.
It's like the graveyard shift episode of SpongeBob when he runs outside screaming and throws it in and then runs back to the place screaming. The Krusty Krab.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you have... Okay, we've talked about this before with the whole, you usually have somebody come in that kind of explains everything.
Yeah.
Well, there's two of those characters this time. We start off with... Well, naturally you have to have your, of Spanish descent housekeeper maid thing that just because I guess, you know, she's of Spanish descent or whatever, she knows all about the paranormal shit. She's the one that says, you know, don't mess with the Ouija board, that is terrible, things will happen. But then they shoehorn Lin Shaye into this movie at the very last minute. I'm spitting everywhere. Here's another thing this movie kind of somewhat maybe had going for it that they completely ruined. Something that's actually kind of... It might seem like it's kind of vague and lazy, but honestly it can really work if you do it right. Mm-hmm. Not identifying your ghost. Like, just have this hostile spirit just be that. Then you feel like you have no, like, control over it, and it could be scarier. And that's the way the movie is for a while. But then, because it's your generic, everyday PG-13 horror movie, you absolutely, positively must have the scene where they get online, they go look at the old newspaper clippings, and we get the whole backstory. They go see a descendant of one of the ghosts, who is the Lin Shaye more or less cameo. And we get the whole explanation of who these ghosts are and why they do what they do. And you can go to sleep if you want to. And then, of course, it's a really, really obvious, very basic way of, all you have to do is this, and you can beat it. That's it. To the movie's credit, there is kind of an interesting twist they throw in there after all this. But as soon as that twist is revealed, it pretty much goes right back headfirst into pure unadulterated stupidity. Like, without missing a beat.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, anytime. And a lot of people thought, I'm under the impression a lot of people thought the whole concept was stupid to begin with. Just taking this board game, pretty much, and trying to make a horror movie around it. Well, there are scenes in this movie that actually convinced me that actually maybe could have worked in some places.
Yeah.
This movie just wasn't doing those things that would have made it work, so... It's another one of those movies where there are a couple of moments that could have been, decently effective scares, but not one... okay. There's, the scene where they're in the basement, and she shines the flashlight on the guy, and there's two shadows there. And the other shadow looks like it's, looking at him, even though there's nothing there.
Yeah.
That could be, a nice, hair-raising moment, briefly. And there's, the same thing where he sees, the reflection in the mirror that he's trying to look really close at because he's not even sure he sees it, and we as an audience aren't even sure we see it. But the trouble with that is every single solitary scare in this movie does not go without being accompanied by a loud noise of some kind.
The Brick-Tamlin disease.
Whether it be nothing will ever beat the quiet ones, I think, in regards to that, but, whether it be a music chord, or, a ghost screaming, or somebody getting, pulled away or slammed into something or whatever. They can't just let the scare be. They have to do something to, at you. It was also kind of hard to distinguish, how the characters were, connected to each other. Mm-hmm. Particularly, frizzy hair guy, who apparently was Debbie's boyfriend.
That's what it seemed like.
Who we learn through, little videos and shit, and then he's the one that, is the really devastated one at the funeral. But there's a moment later where Debbie's been dead for, 2 days, and he's talking about the waitress girl, and how he was with her, and how she's not showing up today because she was shaking all night. Debbie's been dead for 2 days. My first thought when I heard that was maybe he and Debbie have been broken up and he was with the waitress girl. Mm-hmm. But there is a scene later where they're in Debbie's house and he's there because, and his answer to that is that he has a backdoor key. So... nothing is adding up.
No, it really doesn't.
In regards to which character he has a relationship with, but, whatever. Maybe it was an open thing and they were all cool with it, but we'll never know that because...
It's kind of hard to follow, but then again, when it comes down to it, that kind of a plot is not something that most viewers care about.
You have to make up your own character backstory because the movie itself doesn't give a shit.
No, it really doesn't.
That's the issue. So... yeah, I think that pretty much covers this. It's the same thing you've seen over and over and over and over. And it brings nothing new here whatsoever. So, apparently that does it for some people. But,
And a couple of the big things. Did you like anything about it at all? Any of the scenes? There was a couple of scenes that... the stitching of the mouth and everything. I don't know if you'd like that or not.
Not really. That was, I kept thinking of I'm sure it's in plenty of things, but the skeleton key kept coming to mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty much anything here has already been done before and much better. Or worse, I guess. So, yeah. There are some movies that are the exact same thing, only a little bit worse. That's my compliment to this movie. So yeah, like I said, some of the Ouija scenes could have worked, but no, they always find some way to fuck it up. Just like most movies in the genre, sadly. So okay, we're gonna go into John Wick now. John Wick might seem, I can totally get this if you're like hesitant going in, because on the surface, John Wick looks like a really generic movie. You have Keanu Reeves, who used to kill the fuck out of people for a living 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But he has since kind of settled down, and he got married, and everything was pretty great. Everything was fine. But his wife gets sick and ends up dying. But before she died, she had it set up to where he was going to have a puppy delivered to his doorstep, with a note from her that basically says, you know, this is going to be your little coping partner, and you guys can work through this together. And so this dog is everything, and he's got his badass car, and he's got his dog. That's pretty much all he's got in life now. But, you know, he seems like he's able to make it work for a while. Eventually, he has a run-in with this kid at a gas station. Apparently the kid is from Game of Thrones, I learned.
Of course he is.
So, he turns out to be the son of a gangster, and he steals cars for John Leguizamo, it seems. So, one night, he decides that he's going to steal this car from John Wick, because he's fixated on it. So they go in, they beat the holy shit out of him, and naturally, before they steal the car, just because he's this hot-headed wannabe gangster kid, he's gotta kill the dog. And so he kills the dog, and they lay its bloody body next to the unconscious John Wick so he can wake up and find it.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a whole lot we know about John Wick at this point. However, he goes and he takes this car to John Leguizamo's garage. Leguizamo comes out, punches the kid in the face, and says, "Do you realize what the fuck you just did?" And that is when it slowly starts to unravel, and we start to realize that reaction that Leguizamo had is everybody's reaction to John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick is the Bill Brasky of this movie.
So, the gangster dad is the guy from the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The guy that whose part Daniel Craig plays in the new movie, the Fincher movie. I'm not quite sure how to say his name, unfortunately. But he's a badass actor, and he's badass in this movie.
Yes.
So I hope that makes up for my ignorance to his name. And he is like the hardcore gangster who is the father of this kid. And even he's the one where he said, you know, I also love that scene, by the way. Obviously, you know that I'm not a fan of vomit scenes.
No, of course not.
At all. I hate them, as a matter of fact. I can't look at them. I can't do that. But John Wick is so good, there's a vomit scene in it that makes sense. And I loved it for that.
I agree.
Because when the kid shows up, and the dad realizes that he has stolen from John Wick, the first thing that he does is punch the kid in the stomach, and the kid pukes on the floor. Now, they don't come out right and say this, but what that was telling me was, this kid loves to build himself up as this badass. Like, he came in, you know, he caught John Wick off guard and fucked him up and killed the dog just because he thinks he's hardcore. But he can't even take a punch to the stomach without puking. It really speaks about his character. And the cowardice of him. So, even the gangster dad says, here's what's gonna happen. You stole from John Wick, you killed John Wick's dog, John Wick is coming for you, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it.
No one wants to mess with this guy. They know his reputation.
But, obviously, if gangsters are one thing, they're loyal to their families. So he basically decides to bite the bullet and say, I will protect you the best that I can. I will get every single guy that I have to go after John Wick, as much as I don't want to do that. And I will try to protect you the best I can, but I can't promise anything. And the rest of this movie is Keanu Reeves going on one of the biggest killing sprees I have ever seen.
Yeah, to say the least.
But the movie does it in such a style. Because there are a lot of movies nowadays that try to be like really cool and stuff like that. And you can just tell, you can see right through them, and they fail. But this movie's approach to just oozing that coolness seems to come effortlessly. And reaches maximum badassery in the process.
Yeah.
Just obviously we had Keanu Reeves and we know what he's capable of because of the Matrix movies, but he's kind of since dropped off a little bit in regards to this genre. Like doing indie movies like The Private Lives of Pippa Lee and stuff like that. And he's kind of come back into this genre with a vengeance. Because like I said, I'm not quite sure what it is, because obviously, you know, the whole setup is obviously stuff we've seen a billion times before, but there's something about the way this movie does it that makes it really, really stand out in this genre. Part of which is the character, and Reeves' performance. Because it was up to Reeves for us to buy John Wick as this person the entire city fears.
Yeah.
And he surprisingly pulls that off. I've always said he's underrated, so I shouldn't say surprisingly, but he pulls it off extremely well. And they get really creative with these action scenes, too. I mean, it is just him, you know, beating the shit out of people and shooting them.
Yeah.
But there's still a great style to it. Like, there's this really quick moment where, like, it's him, it reminded me of Face Off. Where he's on one side of the wall and the guy's on the other side of the wall. And just the way that scene really quick, it only lasts for, like, a second. But it, just the way that plays out. There's that moment where he grabs the dude by the beard and manages to kill him. But the great thing about this, that this movie really could have, you know, kind of shot itself in the foot a little bit with, and made it less interesting, is with John Wick being this badass, you kind of expect him to be indestructible. Because, you know, he can kill rooms full of people and barely have a scratch on him.
Yeah.
But the great thing is that John Wick is not totally indestructible. He can get his ass beat. One of the very first scenes of the movie is his beating that starts this whole thing off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment in a bar where he gets thrown off, like, the top floor and hits the floor. He's only down for a second, but the fact that he was actually able to be taken down. Because if this were some other generic movie, the main character would just be indestructible and just killing people nonstop, and it would be boring. The opening scene of the movie it's one of those things where it starts at the end and then we circle back around.
Mm-hmm.
Where we see him, like, wreck his car a little bit, and we get out and we see that he's already wounded from whatever the fuck ensued, which we see play out later. So we know right away that he's not indestructible. There's a scene where he gets hit by a car that's just been hit by a car.
Yeah, that was funny.
So he's not one of those boring action heroes that just kind of, you know, just goes through, mows everybody down the end. He's also not emotionally indestructible, as we learn, either, because that's another thing that really sets this whole thing off. And they do something, like, yeah, they do, like, obvious, you know, cool things, like the subtitles are a bit inspired.
Yeah. Very comic booky.
There's this one moment that you may have been curious about in the trailer, where you thought, well, that's a weird delivery, if very Keanu. Where they're in that place that I'm pretty sure is a set right out of a scene in A Good Day to Die Hard. I'm pretty sure that exact set is in that movie. Where they have Keanu and they're basically telling him, you know, what's gonna go down, and he's trying to warn them, saying that he's back. The very Keanu delivery of, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. That probably sounds iffy out of context, but let me assure you that scene, because right after he says that line, John Wick goes fucking off, and he's tied to a chair while he's at it.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And that is the most threatening I think we will ever see Keanu Reeves. I did not, like, imagine that to come out of him. But in that moment, if you didn't think John Wick meant business by this point, if you're blind, you know it by this point. And just badassery ensues. There's a pretty steep cast list. We also have allies that are, there's Willem Dafoe, who's initially hired to kill him, but he's an ally. There is Ian McShane, who's another ally. There's, how do you say her name? Palicki, I guess?
I think so.
Okay. Who is this surprisingly hardcore assassin. Like, she's never really, I've seen her name a lot, but I can barely put a face with her name. But, she really stands out here as, like, this... She's another one of the, she was in the Red Dawn remake in G.I. Joe. But no, she's also another really vicious assassin that's basically his... Last night I compared him to her to Fassbender and Haywire. Which may be my subconscious, because there's a very similar hotel fight scene that there was in Haywire.
Yeah.
There's kind of a general Haywire vibe in this, too.
Yeah,
but
I get
it's
that.
a lot more... Like, if you were, like... I know Haywire had a disappointing reaction because it was a little more artsily done. But no, this is hardcore. Another thing somebody mentioned to me yesterday that perfectly words exactly what I was trying to say in regards to this movie. You remember when I said I was disappointed in The Equalizer a little bit?
Yeah.
That's because this is what I thought The Equalizer was. So, yes.
He even breaks out a sledgehammer at one point, too, so...
We live in a world where Denzel Washington was upstaged by Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
Weird shit can happen. Now, mind you, obviously Denzel's performance in The Equalizer was great.
Yeah.
And probably more so than what Reeves did here. But in regards to the movies that they were in, Reeves really owns this.
Yeah.
And just really brings it. The movie would not be what it is without him. So... Everything that I say now, in regards to the badassery of this movie, goes back to Keanu Reeves and what he was able to do here.
Basically, the fact of the matter is you don't want to mess with Bill or Ted in 2014.
Yeah. And there's another appearance by David Patrick Kelly from The Warriors and The Crow. Because what he does is, once again, John Wick is so well respected. There is a moment at the beginning, the first time they try to ambush him in his own house, and he kills every single one of them. And a cop shows up at his door and can see all the carnage in his house and just says, we got a noise complaint. Looks like you're working again. Good night. And just leaves. And then right after that, John Wick has his own cleanup crew, and that's who David Patrick Kelly is. He has like this little crew that just comes in, takes out all the bodies, and then it's just, and they're his little, like, you know, they come back more than once.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is just so much to love about this movie, and I think it's definitely, obviously, people are already talking that, it's doing great critically, which really surprises me.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to watch this not knowing the critical reception, I would be thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to defend this movie to everybody. Everybody's going to hate it. But the critical reception has been insane. And they're saying that since it's not likely to do well box office-wise, that this is a guaranteed cult movie.
Oh, for sure.
I also forgot to mention Dean Winters, who is really good here. Like, he doesn't do much, but... He's basically the main gangster's henchman. But there's just something about this performance that I really liked, especially at the end during the big action scene, and he's starting to panic. I really loved him in this part.
He basically gets mad because he's getting thrown under the bus at the last minute too. Man, come on.
He's basically doing, I don't know if it's just because he kind of looks like it and has the hair, but I kind of felt like he was doing Walton Goggins a little bit.
Just a tad.
It might just be the hair though. So yeah, and they're both famous for TV shows.
Yeah.
If you don't know Dean Winters, what I say his name immediately, it's Dennis Duffy from 30 Rock. And he's the guy that gets thrown around in those insurance commercials. So...
Man?
Yes. You didn't recognize him?
Now I do.
Really? Because spoiler, the same shit happened to him in John Wick.
That's a shoot. What's the deal with the gold coins? It seems like it's the currency in this time, whatever time this is.
I'm not sure. It's probably just like a MacGuffin thing, really.
Like everybody gets they're pretty much fighting for these gold coins.
It's what he gives the hotel guy.
And we don't know what the hotel's kind of like a secret hotel, and you're not allowed to stay there, and there's rules.
But then there's the moment where he says, we got a noise complaint, and okay, we'll have that taken care of.
He goes to this club, he's like, are you back? No, I'm just passing through. It's like Spy World, basically, is what it is.
So yeah, this movie's gonna need the money it can get, so if this is your type of thing, definitely make sure you seek this out before it's gone in 2 weeks.
Yes, indeed.
Because I guarantee sometime down the road you'll hear about it from somebody. I'm curious to see what its DVD sale will be like.
It shouldn't do too bad.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to split?
I'm sure we are, actually.
Okay.
Because
usually I'm all, this and this and this, and you're all, yeah, that. This isn't going to be one of those, is it?
By looking at how many notes you have, no, not really.
Yeah. Because the movie ended last night, and then I stood up ready to go to John Wick. Because St. Vincent was just me killing time to get to John Wick. And you looked at me and you said, whoa, that was awesome.
I really liked it.
I tried not to react, but in my head I was saying, what the fuck? What did you fall asleep and have a really awesome dream? Is that what you were trying to tell me?
No, I was wide awake during
what
the whole
I saw
thing.
on the screen sure as shit wasn't awesome, but...
I think it was Bill Murray, and it's just Bill Murray himself. That was about it.
Well, hold on. I don't hate this movie, but let's talk about it. Our next movie is St. Vincent.
Timestamp.
Who you know that I was predicting in the Oscar videos. Okay, what happened here was somebody was just perusing IMDb. This guy, I don't remember the writer-director's name, but this is probably the only thing he's done so far. What he was probably doing was he was probably browsing IMDb, and he went to Bad Santa's IMDb page, and he went to the trivia. And if you go to Bad Santa's IMDb page, you'll see, they wanted Jack Nicholson for the part. They wanted Bill Murray for the part, before they got Billy Bob Thornton. Well, what probably happened was this guy saw Bill Murray and Bad Santa in the same breath and thought, hang on a second, I could probably make that movie.
Yeah, now you think about it, that's true.
So, this is yet another addition in the long line of movies where the crabby, lonely guy who hates everything and shuts himself in, who drinks all the time, is going to meet the plucky kid who he's going to have to spend time with. He's going to hate it at first, but by God, if the pluckiness doesn't win him over, and cliches abound, he's going to teach the kid how to defend himself because bullies happen. And then, he's going to, finally take the advice of the crabby old man and knock the bully out. And he and the bully are going to become best friends. And as time surpasses, he's going to become closer and closer to the old guy. And just as the old guy's getting ready to warm up to him, oh God, something's going to happen to bring them apart. What could it possibly be? There's actually a couple of things. There is a medical issue, and there is a last-minute custody battle with Pete from 30 Rock, because we're not done with 30 Rock yet. Oh man, I wish Tina Fey had been in a movie this week. Oh well. Now, but they don't stop there. I'm gonna jump right ahead here. This is one of those movies. If you're a person that's not very fond of cliches, especially cliches in a movie like this, let me tell you something. This is one of those movies where the ending is the kid giving a big speech on the stage, and the person that the speech is meant for has no intention of being there, but at the very, very last minute, just as the speech is starting, the person decides to show up and stand at the back of the auditorium with the one tear going down their face as they realize that they are now accepted and they can find real happiness thanks to the pluckiness of a young boy who will now be his best friend forever. until he dies of old age in a couple of years. So, yes. Now, there were other things in this movie. There were weird accents. What in the fuck was Naomi Watts doing?
Russian?
I think so.
Somewhat?
But I'm not sure. My second thought was, go back to that. Up. Up, another movie about a plucky boy and a crappy old man. Okay, yeah. This movie's PG-13. I had no idea of that at the very start. Because in the first 5... Despite the fact that it's a PG-13 movie about, ooh, plucky boy and happiness, the first 5 minutes of this movie have a sex scene and an F-bomb.
Yep.
As soon as I saw that sex scene with Naomi Watts, I was like, oh, this is rated R. I didn't know that. They don't, like, show anything. But that didn't feel like... Despite the fact that they don't show anything at all, that still did not feel like a PG-13 sex scene.
No.
Is it just me?
I think it was just the context of everything.
And yeah, there is a funny delivery where Bill Murray goes to the bank, and the woman is there, and he says something along the lines of, you know, you seem like a nice person, and I really don't want this little confrontation to end with me telling you to go fuck yourself. At that point in the movie, I was like, oh, this is rated R. Well, I didn't know that. Continue. And then as the movie progressed, I was like, wait a minute. This is a really soft R. And then I thought, wait a minute. He only said fuck once. This is PG-13, isn't it?
I could have told you that.
Not that that's an issue at all. I'm just saying that confused me. Now we have Chris O'Dowd here. There is that. Because the kid goes to I guess a Catholic school, but the only person in the school that's Catholic is the teacher. So that's kind of funny. Like, when we have the kids saying, you know, like, I'm Jewish, or I'm half Jewish, and like, I'm an atheist. I'm agnostic, and I just don't know. And I'm right there with Chris O'Dowd saying that I don't know is the biggest growing religion we have.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, you can check out my God's Not Dead review if you want to.
We got another one of those movies coming soon.
We're not done with plot yet, though.
No.
Just because we need to have more drama. Because this is one of those movies where all the sad things that can possibly happen just happen to conveniently happen in one place. We have another plot here where obviously he's broke, so he's resorted to compulsive gambling. You know. So we have a bookie of sorts who's basically... This is when you know movies like this are really bad. When movies about little kids befriending old people have a villain. Is this a fucking low-tier John Hughes movie? Well, this villain is Terrence Howard. Don't get attached to this plot, because they really, really build it up that something bad could happen if Bill Murray does not get the money to pay off Terrence Howard.
This isn't dirty work, we'll just say that.
Right in the middle of this movie, Terrence Howard disappears without a trace and never comes back. That issue should still be prominent. That issue is not solved.
Nope.
So, I don't know what we're supposed to do with that, because what he owes him still stands. That is still a thing. I'm beginning to think after this movie ended, it got a lot darker. But they wanted it to be a happy movie. Have you seen the dumbass poster for it? The really photoshopped Melissa McCarthy and Murray and Naomi Watts. And he's got like a halo over his head. Yeah, they make sure you know exactly what the title means. They kind of throw it in there as like, you know, suggested at one point. But no, they will blatantly say it right to your face in case you don't get what the title means. Okay? In the big speech scene, too. Now, yeah, like I said, for the first part of this movie, it was a little charming. Because you have Murray doing his thing, which was fine, despite the fact that his voice was weird.
I'm not sure what that accent was either.
It was half-existent, too.
Yeah.
Because he would go right into Bill Murray sometimes. Whatever. They show you that he's a lonely old man that's not with the times because he has a shelf of VHSs under his TV. I saw what 2 of the VHSs were, and that got a laugh out of me, even though I don't think it's supposed to be funny. I was like, okay, what do they have? Because they didn't show them very fast. I saw E.T.
Yeah.
and I saw FX2.
Okay. I saw FX2 as well.
FX is a movie starring Brian Brown and Brian Dennehy from like the 80s, where they hire a movie special effects guy to stage a murder. That movie got a sequel, and he doesn't own FX apparently, he owns FX2. That's great.
Some people like the sequel better than the original.
Yeah,
not very many, but some
I wasn't
people do.
big on the first one, but the sequel was okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, seek those out instead of St. Vincent. You got a nice little education on the FX movies that you're probably just now learning exist. So, there's that. So, yeah, it just, like I said, I was charmed by it for a while. Melissa McCarthy is not bad in it because she's not doing her thing for once.
Yeah, she's actually toned it down completely.
And she has a really good scene and with her, O'Dowd, and the guy that like runs the school, where she's trying to say, it's really cliche dialogue, like, this is what I do, this is my hard life. But she delivers it fairly well. But yeah, I was charmed by it for a little bit, but I just liked it less and less and less and less as it went. And by the end, when it got to that fucking speech, I just couldn't believe my eyes. So, yes, that's what this is. I'm gonna take Bill Murray out of my predictions because I think in any other, like if this were like a really, really, because this is the kind of performance that could totally go for it. Because there's so many things he's got to do. He's got to do the crabby old man thing who finds, a good reason to live. He has to do the emotional thing. He has a stroke in the middle of it and has to do the physical, I guess.
Learn how to talk again.
Portion of it. I guess. It seemed a little half-assed, but...
He broke out of it a couple of times. I won't lie about that.
But I think it's the fact that it's in this movie is why the performance won't go anywhere, except maybe the Golden Globes. That and this movie will just not be memorable at all because, like I said, all the scenes I just mentioned, how many times have you seen that movie? And plus, the Globes have already done this because Billy Bob Thornton got a Golden Globe nomination for Bad Santa. So, the same year, he got beat by Bill Murray for Lost in Translation. So, it all comes full circle. So, and whatever planet you're living on, where Lost in Translation's a comedy.
Yeah.
But that's the Globes for you.
I'm not taking Bill Murray out of my running. I think the performance works really well. And he was easily the highlight of the whole movie for me.
Well, he's the star of it, he better be.
Well, sometimes people that are the star are not the highlights of movies.
Yeah,
sometimes
Bill
it's
Murray.
supporting cat. Exactly.
But even Bill Murray could not save the cliche quicksand that this movie is.
Amy Watts wasn't bad in what she was doing in her weird voice.
She looked nice.
Yes, she always looks nice.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she was like, her hotness was prominent.
She was a lady of the night.
Yeah. You go, Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, St. Vincent's about to look like a masterpiece.
Oh.
Here comes Addicted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a couple of weeks late, but here it is. I'll bet you were waiting so patiently.
I want to hear AJ skewer this movie.
Okay. I didn't know what this was at all.
No one did.
It basically looked like exactly what it turned out to be. It's an R-rated version of Tyler Perry's Temptation. That is exactly what it is. Even the poster looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When I heard the title, obviously my mind went straight to drugs, but it's sex fiction. Not as hardcore as you might think.
Color of Night?
No, not like that. Color of Night may have had those really, really awkward sex scenes.
Mm-hmm, yes.
But just listen to this.
Alright.
Okay, so we have this woman. I don't remember her character name, I don't remember the actress's name, and I probably won't have to. Here she is. And she has a nice life. She works in an office, she's got a really important job, she's got clients. And she's married to Jason, I think is his name. And Jason is one of those, I'm right out of a magazine model type guys.
Tyson Beckford.
Yes. He was missing from baggage claim. So, and they were high school sweethearts. She'd never really, and she pretty much lost her virginity to him. She's only been with him. Yep, that guy.
He's in baggage claim.
That's right. He was the guy at the beginning that cheated on her.
Yep. That's awesome.
Okay.
Great
He's
revelation.
not missing from baggage claim. He's right here playing the opposite part, actually. Now he's the one. It's like karma. He's the one being cheated on now. But her life is perfect because not only that, there's no problems here whatsoever. He's, good to her. He doesn't cheat on her. They have a family. She's happy. And, to top it all off, their sex is fantastic. There is no problem with this marriage whatsoever. Except for the fact that she has just now discovered that she is apparently a sex addict, because she and Jason will have incredible sex, he will fall asleep, and she will go on the internet, look up porn, and pull out her vibrator, and keep going.
Well then.
And that is where our problem starts. It is then at this point that she gets like a little pamphlet from somebody at work about Quentin. Quentin is an artist. And we know how artists work in romance movies. Oh my god! So, what happens here is she goes and she meets Quentin. And we have your mandatory introduction scene where she is at the... Quentin is in the Single Moms Club.
Yes.
Nice. So nice to see these guys have range.
I just love pointing this out to you on camera. It's fun to watch your reaction.
So we have our gratuitous introduction scene of Quentin. Tell me if this scene sounds familiar. She goes to his art gallery, and she's there, and she's looking at one of the paintings on his wall. Oh my god, Tyson Beckett's in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
read it
guy.
too.
Okay, we'll get to him in a second. Yeah, because he's a major character as well.
Alright, go ahead.
Okay, so she goes to the exhibit, and she sees one of Quentin's paintings, and she's there and she's looking at it, and mystery guy walks up, and he's like, "So, do you like the painting?" And she's like, "Oh my god, this guy makes me fucking wet." She doesn't quite say that, but she might as well be. And his response to that is, "I don't know, I think the guy's a hack." And then just as she, goes out of her way to defend, "Oh my god, Quentin's a genius!" That's when Quentin says, "Oh, by the way, I'm like totally him. And I've been him this whole time. Haha. And now we fuck." And that's basically how it goes. So, she's drawn to him immediately because he's an artist. And she decides to cheat on Jason with him because even though Jason is doing everything he can, doing absolutely nothing wrong, up to and including giving her amazing sex, it's just not enough. So, she has to do that. Okay. And the movie actually starts, and we're kind of in flashback a little bit, because she's seeing a therapist. I'm telling you, this movie's fucking Tyler Perry Temptation with a different rating.
It really is.
I can't believe how much I remember about Baggage Claim and Temptation and stuff to remember
You
them.
hate those movies so much. I understand why you...
I guess. Okay, so, and every time we did a War Stuff video, I had to go into deep detail of Baggage Claim.
Yes.
Okay, so, she has this affair with Quentin, and it is starting to cut into her life. She has a... This is how you can tell people are really important in this movie, by their names. They have and they're so proud of this name. They are so proud of this name. Yep, the big important client's name is Balthazar Crane. And you know he's important because they say his first and last name every time they mention his name. And she misses her appointment with him. So her job's going down the shitter because of this affair. So is her family. She keeps missing her son's soccer games. Bummer. And that's like the epitome of drama in this movie. She's missing the kids' soccer games.
Wow.
But now, there's so much stupidity to go into this movie. I don't know how we have time. But I will try. It is then revealed that she is such a sex addict that she brings in a third party. Because here's the thing. Quentin falls in love with her. Just when they're building up Quentin to be the big scumbag, he ends up falling in love with her, and he's saying, he's the one that says, you know, why don't you leave Jason? Come on, just be with me and leave Jason. Let's not do, you know, the sleazy thing. And she's like, oh my god, fuck you, I'm happily married. She says before she's left Quentin's fucking bed. And she goes on this tirade about how happy she is with Jason, how great he is, and then she leaves angrily. And you know what she does? She leaves Quentin's bed angrily after fighting about her husband to go to a sleazy club where she meets... What's the guy's name? Tyson Beckford. And she fucks him in a bathroom, I swear to God. So now we have made this love square, and that's what this movie is. And every time one of the guys tries to go further, no, I'm married. That's what this movie is. And for about 30 seconds at the end, which is probably how it was advertised. I don't know, I didn't see one fucking advertisement for this movie. For 30 seconds at the end, this movie is a thriller.
Oh my god.
Where one of them goes insane and comes at her with a tool.
How appropriate.
Who's full of tools.
Indeed.
And they all converge at the same time, conveniently. Which is hilarious. The confrontation in this movie is fucking hysterical. It was like a really, really bad take from No Good Deed that even No Good Deed said, don't use this. Now, here's the thing. Let's talk about the fact that this is an erotic drama. An erotic R-rated movie.
Mm.
Now, this is... Okay. This is something that Hollywood has kind of been missing a lot. There's not a whole lot of, you know... I'm not telling Hollywood to make fucking porn. I'm just saying, you know, make another Basic Instinct if you're trying to do this. I mean, some people think Basic Instinct's dated, but I mean, you can't deny the fucking erotica that is in that movie.
Yeah.
You just can't. But the problem with that, and what Addicted personifies, is Hollywood cannot seem to do erotic anymore without coming off as, like, trying to be cheap shock value, 50 Shades of Grey, or coming off like really cheap TV. Because even though this movie, like I said, I'm not saying make a full-on porn Hollywood, I'm just saying when you're set yourself up for a genre, you gotta be prepared to take that route. This movie sets itself up as an R-rated erotic movie, and the sex scenes come off like PG-13 music videos.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, I'm not even advocate for saying, you know, if you gotta be R-rated, you gotta show, like, tits and ass. But it is weird to me this movie tries to place itself up as so erotic, and there's practically no nudity in it.
That's strange. Nudity
is in the rating. I think that's a couple of dude asses during the sex scenes, but, yeah, that's what you got. So, I thought that was kind of a fail in itself. And, because you can tell how erotic it thinks it is, too, by the way it plays the scenes up. Like I said, they're like fucking music videos, basically. Only there's really... It's all in the dark, more or less. So, yeah. There's that. Now, here's the thing. And we have to have that scene. How many times have I talked about this now? There is that scene where I feel so bad for women and how they're portrayed in movies like this. Because, here's the thing. This is yet another scene. I feel like I just talked about this last week in something. And I can't remember what it was now. It was the Best of Me. Yes, it was. So it was actually last week. This is another one of those movies where, she realizes that she still loves Jason and nothing is going to change that. So she goes to Quentin's house, because fuck texting and phone, this could not go wrong whatsoever. She goes to Quentin's house to tell him the affair is off. So she goes to Quentin and she says, hey, I can't do this, we're not going to do this, this is the end, this affair is over. That is it. No more whatsoever. Quentin pulls out the mommy issues, and they end up right back in bed. That's it.
Unbelievable.
He shows her a painting, says, my mom didn't love me, she left me when I was little. And then we cut to her pulling her dress down after a session. That's the other, yes. That's exactly the kind of movie we're dealing with. And we have other fun characters, like we have the disapproving mother who knows what's going on, but she's only there to wear her glasses down here on her nose and knit as she watches disapprovingly as the wife leaves every night. who lives with them. And then she gets the big scene of, what you're doing is wrong. You must stop this now. And all that. Whatever. And then we have... it's another movie that's based solely on coincidences. We have that. Like I said, the finale of this movie is hysterical. Okay, here's the thing. When we reach our climax and everything is revealed, Quentin basically suddenly turns into a dangerous slasher movie villain. Yeah, Quentin of all three of them. I guess. So he chases her around and he's like ripping up his paintings, saying like, oh my god, you... doing his thing. And a spoiler alert, I guess. Jason magically appears to hit Quentin over the head with something. This scene takes place in Quentin's house, but here's the thing. After the affair is taking place, she's like hanging out at Quentin's house and he's like, I'm having a dude come over because I need to do business. Take a wild guess who the fucking dude he's doing business with is. So yeah, so that's kind of the connection Quentin and Jason have before Jason materializes in his house to hit him over the head with something for our climax. And then they just leave him there. Quentin, who went on this rampage, they just leave alive. And it just never comes back. But that's the really funny thing, is Jason obviously, with the way this scene plays out, Jason obviously watched this whole thing unfold where Quentin went around like a psychopath, swinging shit around at her, looking like he was going to murder her. Jason's obviously standing in the background waiting for his moment to strike and hit him over the head with something so he can say a line. Because it's a sculpture that Quentin sent him because he liked it in his museum, and he's like, you could have it back. That bullshit. But after he has foiled this, he only hit him once, and he's just going to lay him there. Then it goes right into the scene. After Jason knocks him out, he just leaves. And after all this is played out, after he has basically saved her life, he's walking away and does the "No, you lied to me" moment. Everything seems a little misplaced here, don't you think?
Just a bit.
Just a little bit. Okay. Now, and then it won't end. There's like 15 more minutes of her in therapy after the big confrontation. So, whatever. Because we care so much about the woman who says, I have 2 kids and a family. You do not tell me you love me. Now I'm going to go right to the sleazy club from here and fuck him in the bathroom. Yeah! Like I said, I think it's supposed to be like erotic and sexy and all that, but it's really just disgusting and sleazy and makes you just... no. This is not a character I could get behind, even though that's what guys apparently she let them do. So, that's just the way this movie is. So yeah. It's bound to get a lot of big laughs if you watch it with people, for sure. But, yeah. That's all this has got. Screw this movie. I hate it. So yes. That was painful. Our next movie is a movie that's been getting some critical acclaim called Camp X-Ray, which is Kristen Stewart in the starring role, who is getting acclaim for all 3 of her movies this year. She's also got the Cloud movie and and Still Alice she's in. And apparently she's getting acclaim for all of them, and she's especially gotten acclaim for this because she's the star of it. I'm assuming she's got supporting roles in the other 2. I guess to set the time, the opening shot of the movie is 9/11. I guess to make it, to set a time, I guess. They never really bring that back. So she joins the army, but she ends up becoming a prison guard in Guantanamo Bay. And one of the... use the right word. We have the whole half an hour introduction of what they're supposed to do. You don't call them prisoners, you call them detainees. So, slave, you call them detainees. The detainee that she has a connection with is the guy from A Separation. And they do, well, she's the one where she goes around with, she's Andy Dufresne, only she's not a prisoner. Detainee! So she's going around with the book cart, and she's like, doing the librarian thing. And his deal was that there are 7 Harry Potter books, and he has read 6, but the 7th one is not on their rack. And he desperately wants to know what happens in Deathly Hallows. And from that, it kind of branches into them having conversations. Like, for a while, she's just, you don't talk to me, detainee. But then she starts to kind of soften. And, of course, there's sexism because she's a woman in the army. Watch The Invisible War if you want to. You can get all that. And I think that was Marines, though. But still, military branch, sexism, it's all there. Now, the problem is, okay, well, let me go into more of this before I go into what's wrong. For a while there, it's interesting to kind of watch their relationship build, because for a while he treats her like any other guard. Like, there was a moment in time where he, builds up her trust, and then just when she trusts him enough to not have, like, the box there when they exchange things, he has a cup of his own shit, and he throws it on her. So there it kind of sits in the whole, maybe she can't trust him, but the movie is all about their friend. That's all the movie is, really. It's just their friendship kind of building despite their positions in this story. And of course, she kind of feels like an outcast anyway, so naturally a detainee is where she would find comfort in somebody else. Because they do have the thing where she possibly starts to have a thing with another soldier, but then she's like, oh no, fuck this, and, cog blocks him. So, now, the problem with this movie is that it's a nice, it's an okay story, and the performances are really good. Kristen Stewart is surprisingly good. But they do absolutely nothing original with this setup at all. It is just pretty much everything you would expect out of this movie you get with the guard befriends prisoner storyline. That's it. You probably know the movie front to back now, just me saying that. But still, it's not that bad. The way it unfolds and how the characters interact, it's fine. It's nothing that's, really stand out or anything fantastic, but it's not a bad movie or anything. It does take, it's a little long. It takes about a half an hour to get to its point, and then once it makes its point, it gets pretty redundant. But, still, the interactions are pretty much the whole reason to see it. And if you are still trying to buy Kristen Stewart as a decent actress, this might help you out a little bit. It's not going to make you say, like, oh my god, I have totally misunderstood her this whole time, but she's good. They have a humorous back and forth where she, obviously he's the prisoner trying to talk to her and say things, and she refers to him as Hannibal Lecter, and he doesn't get the reference. So there's some funny exchanges like that, and then, like I said, it's fine, but this movie could have been 85 minutes, and it's 2 hours.
What?
So,
was it that long?
It's about an hour 57, I think. Yeah, so, like I said, it takes a half an hour to even get to this point, because we have all the introduction and all the protocol and stuff like that. John Carroll Lynch is in here for a couple of scenes as like a superior. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It just kind of is that. Okay. Our final movie we saw almost a week ago, which is Kill the Messenger. Another movie with an awesome cast list, and is pretty much the main reason to talk about it.
Yeah.
The main story is Jeremy Renner is a reporter of sorts, and he gets this. We have this introduction with him and Robert Patrick that kind of sets up his character and what he does and the lengths that he goes to get a story. And then this story is breaking out about like corruption in the CIA. And how the CIA is doing all kinds of shady shit that should probably be on the surface. So he's going to infiltrate and find this out. They're apparently giving weapons to rebels in Nicaragua, and they're importing cocaine into the U.S. So, obviously it's a real story too, and it was a real guy. And the interesting thing is the IMDb synopsis I read before we went in. And the IMDb synopsis says that Gary Webb was driven to suicide by this. In the whole movie, I was kind of waiting for, like, oh my god, what is going to happen that is going to cause this? But they do the in-text thing. So that whole thing is just kind of the whole build-up to this movie is what you might not be thinking if you know the real story, or know where it ended up. It does struggle a bit with cliches. One of the very first things you see in this movie is, based on a true story, is typed across the screen with a typewriter sound effect. And then, that felt a little familiar. And then Renner has a lot of dialogue like, I believe in due process. And then Michael Sheen has the line of, you have no idea what you're getting into, going into this deep. Stuff like that. But it doesn't really bring it down that much. And it's few and far between, really. Our cast list. The main reason this movie really works is Renner is really commanding in this movie. Really, he had some buzz there for a while, which has kind of died down since the movie got a reaction.
Yeah.
Nobody loved it, nobody hated it, it was just there.
Yeah.
But he is really, really good here, and probably in, like, kind of a more low-lying year, maybe. Like the year Damien Bashir got in for A Better Life in 2011, because despite what some people say, 2011 sucked. If it had been a year like that, maybe he could have found some traction. He and Murray, since we're on that topic again. His wife is Rosemary DeWitt, who is pretty much does the wife thing, but she's still, she's always a welcome presence. Oliver Platt is kind of the guy he works for. He and Mary Elizabeth Winstead are like his partners in all this. I don't know, the one saying, you really don't want to go too deep into this because you might, God knows what. Because these are, shady people.
Yeah.
Like I said, all familiar territory, but the movie still handles it relatively well. There's a one-scene wonder with Ray Liotta, who we kind of build to through the whole movie. Because he's like third in the credits, and you wonder, where... And they're not even alphabetical, so it's like, where the fuck is Ray Liotta? I think he's going to be a big deal. He has one scene, and he's kind of, the informant, more or less, that tells us all the important stuff. And it's a good scene. Maybe not worth an entire movie of build-up, but still a good scene. It's alright. Any type of Ray Liotta movie is good. I really love how much we've seen him this year. Like I said, there's one scene with Michael Sheen. There's some really good courtroom scenes with Barry Pepperint and Blake Nelson. Michael Kenneth Williams is in there. Andy Garcia is one of the people that he goes to question about all this shadiness. It's a really, really great cast list. And even though a lot of people don't get enough screen time to really shine like you would expect in a cast list this long and great, that just kind of goes with the territory of movies like this. The whole movie still delivers on its point. Yeah. And still does it really well. And like I said, even if you know the ending, it has a really good stopping point. The scene where he gives the speech is really, really good. And really well done. And that closing shot of him just going up the escalator and disappearing before the text comes up, I really liked how that played out. So, yeah, this is one of those movies where it was all about the execution, and I thought they did it pretty well. So, yeah. So, I think we're done here.
Alright, one last time. We're to go through everything, and we're going to say yay or nay. Ouija?
No.
John Wick?
Yes, definitely.
St. Vincent?
I say... I mean, if that's your thing, maybe like rent it out of Redbox in a few months or something.
Addicted?
No, don't.
Camp X-Ray?
Yeah, it's fine. It won't hurt you.
And Kill the Messenger?
Yeah, I solidly recommend it, despite how much I complain about the cliches. So.
Yeah. Next week is kind of up in the air right now. I know Nightcrawler is there, and I don't know what else is coming out.
Well, we're basically gonna, since it'll be Halloween, it looks like we're going to have the ABCs of Death 2, VHS Viral. Apparently there's a remake of The Town that Dread Sundown.
Yep.
And a movie called Stonehurst Asylum that has Kate Beckinsale and Ben Kingsley and a few other people in it.
Wow, I didn't know that movie existed. And it's official now. There is a possibility you're going to be able to see Tusk soon, so we should be having a Tusk review soon. Whiplash should be coming in the next several weeks too.
A couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what we're hopefully by the middle of November. Nothing later than that. But that's what we've got later this weekend. Obviously, Sunday will be your final scary themed verses of 2014. We're going to play a game. And I don't know what's going to come for next week's verses. You're going to have to tune in and find out. So, AJ, any parting words?
That's it.